NXT's Black and Gold was our first real look into what a show could look like under Triple H's command. The men and women on this list have all gone on to vastly different career paths, but wherever they are now, they were on top of their game when they were holding onto championships in WWE's third brand. I'm Cy for WhatCulture.com, and these are the 10 best NXT champions of the Black and Gold era. Number 10, Bo Dallas. It seems appropriate to open this list with Bo Dallas, as his time at the top of NXT was a real moment of clarity for the promotion. To recap, Bo Dallas was a third-generation wrestling prospect that the company picked as their developmental system's next golden boy. However, the cheery cheese of Dallas's babyface shtick was a little too forced for most people. Thus began a story that showed the earliest inkling of NXT's potential, facilitated by the fact that Full Sail University was a small and devoted audience. To show their disinterest in babyface Bo, the crowd quite literally turned their back on him. Whilst Dallas's opponents in Adrian Neville and Sami Zayn were no slouches, his greatest feud was with the homegrown audience. It allowed Dallas to really show his range. He became a spoiled brat who thought of himself as inspiring but was really just an egotistical nuisance. He carried the NXT Championship at the height of his pomp, and Full Sail fans clearly had a riot hating him, which came across on screen. Whilst previous champions Rollins and Big E are absolutely nothing to be sniffed at, Dallas's time with the title represents one of the defining gimmicks of NXT's early developmental days. Number 9, Sasha Banks. It goes to show just how many great champions NXT had that the boss enters at just number 9. Don't take this placement as a slight against Sasha Banks. She was at the forefront of one of the most important moments in WWE history when she got her hands on the NXT Women's Championship. Whilst the company bleated constantly about creating the Women's Revolution in 2016 by swapping the Raw Women's Championship every 2 weeks, in actuality it all began at NXT the year previous. No better is this proven than NXT TakeOver Arrival, where Banks claimed the Women's Championship in the only ever 4 horsewomen fatal 4-way in history. And naturally, Banks' time as the boss with the belt was sublime. She would have overshadowed lesser competitors with her innate skill, but as it so happened, she had a stacked roster of opponents to craft magic with: Charlotte Flair, Alexa Bliss, and a breakout performance for Becky Lynch. More than that, the match where she finally dropped the belt after her 192-day reign is often regarded as one of the best women's matches of all time. Sasha Banks versus Bayley at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn was a statement that the WWE had changed, and the boss was at the forefront of it. Number 8, Tommaso Ciampa. Ciampa might be one of the most decorated men in NXT. Former tag team champion and multi-time NXT champion, and more than just shiny props, he was also the representation of one of the show's greatest eras. After the betrayal of former tag partner Gargano, Ciampa would walk to the ring with no music to smother himself in the booze of Full Sail. But his devotion to the brand and its championship, who he lovingly referred to as Goldie, made him hard to hate. Fans were broken-hearted when an injury saw him relinquish Goldie and fear for the future of his career. And when he finally returned to NXT's title picture, it was as the Old Guard, a steering commander of the brand as it faced imminent, worrying, and luminescent changes. The Psycho Killer represented the last great bastion of Black and Gold when he finally left NXT, so much so that on the way he dropped the belt to Bron Breakker, a man who had just taken a chainsaw to the show's previous logo. Subtlety, thy name is Bron. Ciampa did it all in NXT, including a truly excellent run as champion. Number 7, Kevin Owens. The former Kevin Steen entering the company gave rise to the first wave of suspicion that Vince McMahon had no idea what Triple H was doing down at Full Sail. Steen was indie-tastic, and his body shape was so outside of Vinnie Mac's mould of almost exclusively Greek gods, not to mention that his merchandise was emblazoned with Kill Steen Kill. This was arguably the only real edge that WWE shaved off, as it became Fight Owens Fight instead. The character was still a selfish, ruthless warrior, and he proved on his first night that he was the same man as ever by brutalizing the newly crowned NXT champion, his former friend Sami Zayn. Owens wasted no time planting his flag, claiming the promotion's top prize by stoppage and becoming the most despicable villain in NXT to that point. Whilst his reign was only 142 days, Owens left a huge mark of legitimacy on the title. The most impactful moment of his run happened on Monday, May 18th, 2015, when the prizefighter appeared on Raw to answer John Cena's open challenge. It was unfathomable. Cena lay prone, Owens stood tall, holding his championship aloft and stomping on the United States title. The NXT champion would go on to beat Cena cleanly, and whatever else happened in that feud that we'd like to forget, it was a declaration at the time that Black and Gold had arrived. Number 6, Shayna Baszler. Looking at Baszler's pitiful main roster run is painful. For the most part, she's been another cog in the machine. In NXT, she basically was the machine. Charlotte Flair and Shayna Baszler, at the time of writing, are the only women to hold the NXT Women's Championship more than once. However, the Queen of Spades grip was something else entirely. Between her 2 reigns, Baszler has 548 days, making her the woman who, if you were to tune into any given episode of NXT, you'd be most likely to see hold the gold. But it wasn't just that she did it was how. Baszler was a legitimate MMA powerhouse, and she was presented as such. She was also a passionate wrestling fan. She might have been a tad greener than some of the indie stars that NXT was starting to fill up with, but Baszler was committed to learning, and she got better and better, and also nastier and nastier. Putting down babyface heroes with the Kirifuda clutch, Ember Moon, Candice LeRae, Dakota Kai and more fell to her ability to always overpower and shut down her opponent's offense. Dropping the belt to Kairi Sane for a paltry 70 days in the middle of her run doesn't stop her from being the final boss of the women's division for almost 2 years. Number 5. The Revival. For a good number of years, NXT put on clinic after clinic when it came to duos. American Alpha, Breezango, Mustache Mountain, DIY, the list goes on, and almost every group seemed to have fantastic chemistry with their opponents. However, there is one team that was just on another level every single time they stepped between the ropes, and it's really no surprise that they are recognised as the best around today. The phrase "no flips, just fists" was cool, but it betrayed just how versatile and talented the Revival truly were. Any doubters found themselves with their jaws on the floor as Wilder and Dawson connected with every team on the roster in exciting ways, crafting matches with edge-of-your-seat sequences and false finishes. The Revival's simple gimmick fit snugly into the role of consummate professionals who had no time for horseplay when a lot of NXT's babyface teams were at least a little wacky. They were the ideal foil for American Alpha and the Vaudevillains, putting an end to their respective reigns to claim the tag belts. Their combined run of 306 days puts them in the top 3, but their brilliant 2 out of 3 falls matches could easily be some of the best tag work in NXT history. Number 4. Pete Dunn. The NXT UK Championship tournament ended with Tyler Bate as the inaugural title holder, but the true star was Pete Dunn. As such, it really was no surprise that he got his hands on the prettiest title in all of NXT in quite short order. Dunn was instantly a fully formed character and vicious player worthy of swinging that belt from his teeth. The Bruiserweight was deadly and threatening, not just because he delighted in cracking the bones of his opponents, but because, going by his disinterested shrug, it was all he cared about. The NXT UK title didn't have a lot of champions in its time, but it did have 2 pretty prominent ones. Despite Volta holding the belt longer by a not insubstantial 200 days in fact, he did so during an awkward time with the pandemic restricting the champion's appearance. As such, it's Dunn that often comes to mind first. And whilst Dunn had his own small absences, he was the perfect player to build NXT UK around. With a year of NXT USA to build his rap sheet, as well as indie appearances at the likes of Dub X Dub and Progress, Dunn gained an unstoppable aura that made him a star attraction across WWE and the wider world of wrestling. Number 3. Finn Balor. There was a palpable sense of excitement and disbelief when Balor came to NXT. The promotion had signed indie darlings already, but to bring the former leader of the Bullet Club over from Japan was stunning. Not only is he part of an elite crew of men who have held the title twice, he also did it in 2 different decades as 2 different characters. Balor's first run as the Demon felt cutting edge. Around this time, NXT didn't really have a ton of strong gimmicks and much in the way of production values. It also didn't have that standout babyface that was needed to topple Kevin Owens for the title. Balor's first reign lasted 292 days, the second longest in promotion history, and he became the face of a prospective next generation. Fair to say things didn't work out on the main roster, however, but he returned to NXT in 2019. Starting out as a heel, Balor was forced to turn face due to the audience's overwhelming adoration for their returning former star. Still, he played a more intense and dangerous character who shocked the world by capturing the NXT Championship for the second time. Whilst his second run wasn't nearly as strong as his first, his presence made a huge difference, adding luster back into a brand that had lost some of its steam. Number 2. Asuka. It's safe to say that NXT fans were not ready for Asuka. When the truth came out about the former Kana signing with WWE, there was a lot of talk comparing her to that of Bull Nakano in 1994, the last female Japanese star to sign with the company. And with all respect, Asuka came into NXT and instantly began to blaze her own trail. Dana Brooke was her first victim as she cleaved a winning streak unlike any other. Though Asuka's mic time was limited, she was mesmerising in every spot she was put in. The Empress of Tomorrow's presentation was an impenetrable wash of colour and unpredictability. She got over fast, and it was only a matter of time until Asuka held gold. Taking the title away from the departing fan favourite Bayley, her time had truly begun. At a recognised 522 days, Asuka's reign is the longest NXT Women's Championship run of all time. More to the point, she famously never lost. Even when she was injured and would eventually move on to Raw, she left NXT as an unbeaten whirlwind of power and suspense. Her run wasn't always perfect, but to leave a promotion in such a spot, beloved and looked back on as fondly as those 17 months were, speaks volumes about the importance of Asuka as NXT Women's Champion. And number 1, the Undisputed Era. It really couldn't have been anyone else at number 1. With their powers combined, the Undisputed Era are the most decorated group in NXT history. Within their first 2 years, the debuting Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish recruited a fourth in Roderick Strong, got their hands on the NXT Tag Team Championships, and Cole became the inaugural NXT North American Champion. At the end of 2018, Adam Cole laid out the Undisputed Prophecy. All 4 members would be draped in gold in the following year. At TakeOver 15, Cole picked up the NXT Championship, setting an example that his stablemates would follow in the coming months. When Strong's North American Championship, the final piece of the puzzle, fell into place, it was a sight to behold. The jewel in the crown, of course, was Cole as the top dog of the company and the leader of this charismatic frat house of a stable, who set a record with the longest NXT Championship reign at a stunning 403 days. However, each man was incredibly talented, contributing the finest matches of what some believe to be the last great run of NXT Black and Gold. Whatever the case, it's a feat that is unlikely to happen again anytime soon. And that's the list. Let us know what you thought of this video down in the comments below. Which NXT champion is your favourite and which did we not include? Make sure you like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe and hit that notification bell, and head to whatculture.com for more content on the daily. I've been Cy for What Culture, and have a good week.